Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is my custom off-road chopper. Lately, there's been a bit of a buzz about box race engines, and this is one of them. It's not a Predator Ghost, but it is a Tillotson 212R MK2. Everyone has been having a lot of fun, and I want to play too. So, we're going to see what we can do with this thing. The 212R has a few advantages, such as a mild race cam, one of the highest compression ratios you can get on a stock engine, and it's completely blueprinted with a very solid block. Where we are lacking in comparison to the Ghost is at that carburetor. I'm going to get this filter, air box, and carb right out of the way. We got something else hanging out over there. Unlike the Ghost, with its fancy 6,000 RPM limited coil, we're only left with 5,800 RPM and a more traditional mechanism. That means we need a carburetor that can work with all this jazz. So that's why we're going to employ the Tillotson PK 660 carburetor. This is a board stock appearing carb. Everything should hook up just the same. Well, that was easy. To get this engine on our mini bike, the most difficult part is going to be setting these studs for the first time. We're going to be cutting the shaft today, so I dropped the chain. I'll bring these up a couple inches, but not too high, just enough to go through the block and have something come out on the other side. I temporarily remove the jack shaft and the two set bolts that hold these plates together. That way we can access our studs from the bottom. We're not too bad on the top, but we can come up just a little bit. That's much better. Now we got to get nut and lock washers on them things. Down below too. The top ones weren't that bad. You could lean the engine forward to get those on. I probably should have put those on first. We'll see what happens. Sausage fingers, don't fail me now. That took me a few tries, about 15 minutes, a little bit of aggravation. Would have been easier to take everything off and put it back on, but I wanted to be sure that it could be done. See what I mean? I pulled it off anyway, because now I want to get a measurement on the amount of threads that I have above the plate. That way I have a better estimate if I do this again. It looks to be about 1 3/8 inches. Now we can tighten the jam nuts on the bottom, and that'll hold those right in place. Over on the workbench, I just added an oil drain extension that I saved off of a Hisun 196, and now I'm replacing the oil with a shag over 16 ounces. The engine goes right back in place, both nuts and lock washers. Not tight. Everything can still move around. We have to get the jack shaft on there and make sure that we're parallel when we have the belt on. Originally, I was going to use these grade 8s up front. The 212R gets a little tight where it's all a solid casting up in here. I can't send them in through the bottom because they're not full thread. To make life easy, we're just going to knock out some studs. I had to feed these ones up from the bottom. I put a nylock nut and a lock washer on both of them, and then a lock washer and a grade 8 nut down below. I put the shaft back on. We're going to add a pulley, and then the driver and a belt. I'm going to find out where this engine is perfectly square, and I'm going to tighten it down. I have all my spacers on there, my pulley, and my driver sitting on the side. My motor is square, and it's tightened down. The hardest part about this is tightening those two nuts right back there. I was able to do it with an offset wrench. I just ordered another one that is a 75-degree offset wrench that should make this even easier. I have those as tight as they need to be. It's not going to go anywhere, but I'm always thinking ahead. Something else I'm thinking is if I bring the studs up more next time and I add some washers underneath those nuts. That way it brings it up, and it takes the curse of trying to come over the top of this tube and down level right out of there. The front really wasn't that bad. When you get into working on these things and you've replaced a few engines, you get used to working in tight spaces. And you figure out all the little tricks. Short wrenches, offset wrenches, all that stuff makes a big difference. We're not talking some sort of crazy investment either. The wrench that I just ordered was only 12 bucks. That's one wrench, okay? But it's a 1/2 inch and a 9/16. So when I'm doing things like this, I'm going to think ahead and I'm going to get 1/2 inch or 9/16. That way, I don't need a whole set of those wrenches. These are some Hyper Toughs. Got them right down at Wally World. It wasn't a whole bunch, but it came with, say, like a medium length and these short ones. That's all I need, guy. Here we are with the driver and the pulley in position. Everything's pushed back where it needs to be. Our shaft is all the way through. We're now going to add a washer, a split collar, and mark the end. Just to be sure. Okay. I'm going to leave probably, I don't know, about a 1/4 inch hanging off of there. I'm going to go cut that thing. That means I'm going to take all this stuff off. That's why it's not bolted on. After I made my cut, I just tapered back the end a little bit. And then I took a file and opened up the keyway. That's about what it's going to look like completely installed. Now, we're going to add a key to the pulley. And I think I already have one cut for the old Torquezilla. The key on the jack shaft is going to pass through the pulley and into the 10-tooth sprocket. To make that happen, we need a washer that we can pass through. I took out a couple spacers that I had in there, and I'm replacing them with one of these pass-through keyed washers that came with the regular 30 series torque converter kit. Just make a mark, and we'll go cut it. This is going to work fine for the Torquezilla. It's okay if it overhangs. You can use it as a guide to bring your driver on. I'm lined up and my pulley is locked and loaded. We still have to see if this thing starts, so I'm going to remove everything here just for the time being. I guess this would be a good idea. Now's as good as time as any. I try to make these things as close to plug and play as possible. Should just be able to hook this one up to the coil, and this green one and the yellow one will get connected at this bolt. On my wires, I like to wrap them with a painter's tape and then some electrical. The reason I do this is so that if I want to do an engine swap later on, I'm not dealing with such a sticky mess. It comes off like a little cocoon with a razor blade and some finger action. See what I mean? All blacked out, you wouldn't even know. Now, we're going to move on to the throttle cable. The 212R is very simple to do. You have a cable stop, and you have a clevis. Minutes. That's all it takes when you're installing a cable on one of these. They're just that straightforward. Now that we have a cable to control the fuel, we're going to need a fuel line to go to the carburetor. Oh, that's pretty sweet. I had this on a gas tank that I wasn't using. I pulled it off. The fuel line is still nice and soft. I'm just going to clip the ends, and we're going to set this up in between. We're going to leave this valve on, and I'm going to leave that one on. This will be our main. I just went with the most direct path I could, and everything seems to work out. This is the stock valve cover vent tube. I took it off and ran a piece of fuel line that fit in the hole, snug, in the side of the cover, and the filter. Tighten the filter on, and now I'm just adding a zip tie up under this seat support to hold it safely out of the way. The idea is here that I don't have a rear fender, and if it just kicks up, you know, a little bit of water, dew off the grass or something, mud right here, you'd be out of business. It's a little better up there. Same goes for the air filter. We're using a custom snorkel to move everything to a safer location and away from the back tire. It's missing something. Oh yeah, much better. I have some air filter oil coming in the mail, so till then, it's better than nothing. When you're on the mini bike and you have your legs to the side, you know it's there. But as soon as you hit the pegs, oh yeah, that thing is nice and safe. And with those big dookie clamps, it's not popping off anytime soon. For the exhaust, I'm using the simplest thing I have. Super easy to replace and fix too. It's got silicone wrap over it. Little step on the end. It's going to sound nice with this 212R. The 212R actually has a 196R head with a 27 millimeter intake and a 25 on the exhaust. Even without porting, this should sound pretty cool. These engines have a tone of their own. Probably has something to do with the cam and all that extra compression. A little bit of fresh 93. up to it. That idle's good. It looks like we only have one thing left to do. Have some fun. I think I have everything we need to do that over here on the workbench. Currently, we're limited to 5,800 RPM. So, we're going to see what we can do with that, and then a little bit more. Because as always, it's a work in progress. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.